All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Google Drive Basics. My name is Thad Jesperson. I'm your instructor today, and we're going to be covering a number of things in Google Drive and helping you to understand a little better how Drive works and how it keeps evolving and all of the things that we can share with you to help you have a better understanding and appreciation for this amazing thing that's been given to us, this tool that allows us to organize all of our Google apps. And we'll be doing this for about an hour and a half. And then again, we'll have question and answers at the end. So right now we are recording this. And when I have the chance to render this video and then edit it, possibly tonight or tomorrow, I'll be getting that to you. And then you can have it to watch and rewatch and review different parts of it. And so what are we going to be doing today in Google Drive? Let's take a look. Well, we're going to talk about what Google Drive is, what it is, how it works. We'll be getting into that, talking about the difference between cloud computing and computing on your hard drive or desktop. We'll be talking about the Google Drive Online Handbook and what that is. We'll go over the user interface quite thoroughly today in our hour and a half. We'll be talking about how to upload files and folders and different things like that, and how to organize those files and folders. Well, I'll just tell you right now that we are blessed that in the sandy.net Google domain that all of us as San Diego Unified employees are a part of, we have unlimited Google Drive storage, which is why I render all my videos into it and then share them with you, because otherwise I'd be paying for that out of my own pocket if this were my private account. But kudos to San Diego Unified for doing that for us, and we'll show that. And then optical character recognition is something that Google has built into Google Drive. And with that, we are actually able to open up a PDF that would otherwise not be available to us, and we can, depending on the PDF, we can then maybe answer some of the questions or interact with that PDF in Google Docs. Because of optical character recognition software built into Google, we can do that and then turn it back into a PDF and then submit a form, for example, something that we might found online. I have an example for that we'll get to. And then also finding, recovering, restoring files. Again, if you've been to any of our Google classes, I tell you that Google is always changing. And so finding and recovering and restoring files is different today than it was just a few months ago. In fact, there's a whole new thing about the Google Trash, which we'll get to, that started on October 15th. And we'll talk about that. So we'll dive into the Google File search feature, which is fantastic. You would imagine that the best search engine on the planet would have some awesome search capabilities built into Drive, and it certainly does that. All right, so something important, you can, in your Google Drive, you can put Excel files, Microsoft files like Microsoft Word, PowerPoint. You can store those in your Google Drive just as a Microsoft product. Or you can then take them from your Drive and turn them into, for example, a Microsoft Word file could be turned into a Google Docs file. A Microsoft Excel file could be turned into a Google Sheets file. And a PowerPoint from Microsoft can be turned into a Google Slide. And there's a way to have that done automatically. So every time you upload a Microsoft file into your Drive, it's automatically switched to a Google product. And you have a choice whether it happens like that or if you want to do it manually. And so we're going to share how that's done in settings. And we'll be talking about the pros and cons of that and what my personal preference is and why. So there's something called the file tree that's in your Drive, and we'll share with you what that is. And it's kind of reminiscent of the DOS days way back when we didn't have the user interface with all the graphics. It was just a bunch of words on a page when they were doing computers way back when. And some of that still lingers, and we'll share that with you when we get to it. Google Drive notifications. You can set up in your Google Chrome. By the way, whenever we're doing Google, always work with Google Chrome, the browser. And again, everything we do with Google is done up in the cloud. How do we access the cloud and the internet? We do that through our browser. Like when we do Google searches and different things like that. And so you can set it up so that whenever someone shares something with you, or maybe you've sent a form out and a survey for people to fill out, someone has filled it out and submitted it, you can get right there on your browser, get a notification, or you can do what I do, which is simply to have an email sent to you. And so in my Microsoft Outlook email account, I have a special place where all of those show up. So we'll talk about how to do that. How to share files in Google. Very simple, and we'll show what that looks like and how it works. And then there's something called backup and sync and drive file stream. And that I will just tell you is something that has evolved over the years, but the bottom line is the version that you have for your own personal computer is called backup and sync, where instead of all of your Google stuff being up in the cloud, you can actually set it up where some of it resides on your hard drive. So even if your internet connection goes out, for example, or maybe you have a laptop and you're on vacation somewhere and you want to be able to work on your certain Google files, but there's no internet where you are, with backup and sync on your personal computer, your personal laptop, you can then work on those files. And then when you reconnect, it will sync it to the cloud, and all of the files that you're working on are then backed up. So that's what that is. So what's Drive File Stream? Well, that's like the commercial version of it, or in our case, the enterprise. We are sandy.net Google domain. And what that means is we have the ability to actually have not only all of our files in our drive up in the cloud, but we can actually have a place somewhere on your computer, on your hard drive, where you can drag anything you want to, like an Excel file or a PDF or a Word file or just about anything, pictures and otherwise, drive it and or drag it and drop it into that drive. And so we'll kind of show a little bit about how that could work, because this is my personal home computer, my desktop that I'm working on. My laptop that I have from work is so tiny that I can't see anything to do these classes. So I actually don't have a way to show that exactly how it works, but the idea is that you simply have a drive that's set up on your hard drive, on your computer, that all things that you drop into it automatically go up to the cloud into your Google Drive. That's what that is. All right, so those are the things that we're going to be covering today, and in no particular order. So we're going to dive into that. Are there any questions about what we intend to cover today, or maybe something you were hoping we could cover that you don't see there, so that I can make a note of that? Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. All right, that's okay. We're going to continue. That gives me a chance to take a quick drink to keep my throat hydrated, so I can keep talking for all the hours that I talk each day doing these classes, which again, I love, so that's wonderful. So we'll put that down there. And the first things first. So again, each of us has a drive, and let me get this back to the original page. In fact, I'm gonna get rid of that. Let's see if I can. And I don't know if you know this, but one of the tips and tricks for working with anything in a Windows environment, in this case, we're on the Google Chrome browser that we have here. Let me take care of that. There we go. But it is in a Windows environment. It's on a Windows computer, a PC. You can hold down your control key, and if you roll your mouse wheel one way, it makes things smaller. If you roll it the other way, if you look up here, you can see what's actually happening. You can kind of zoom in. So I'm going to find something that's not too close, but not too far away, that maybe when you're watching this video playback, you'll be able to actually read some of the things. So I may be zooming in and out a little bit as we go. But here we go. So we are actually in drive.google.com, and this happens to be in the sandy.net Google domain. And I keep myself organized, and I have my own personal Google Drive, as probably many of you do as well. I know this is my sandy.net one because I see a picture of just me right there. And up here, I have an example of my personal one, which looks similar, but there's other information there. In fact, let me scroll that a little, too far. Let me scroll it a different way to try to keep them roughly the same size. Let's see how I did. That's pretty close. So when I'm comparing the two, it's not so confusing. But I know this is my personal one because there's a picture of my wife and I, and of course that's associated, that Google account is associated with my Yahoo email right there. So first things first, I will just share with you is in this user interface, and again, I'm not in my Sandy.net, so it looks a little bit different perhaps. One thing that's different is down here at the bottom of this list of features that are here, it has our storage. And it's telling me that I have 2.1 gigabytes of 15 gigabytes allowed. That's how much we get for free when you're in your personal one. Anybody in the world that signs up for a Google Drive account gets 15 gigabytes free, which is great. And you can have all kinds of stuff in there. But if you exceed that, then you have to start paying and buy more storage. And there's all kinds of plans up to several terabytes of information that you can have, like in the case of a business that maybe is storing big files, like maybe they're making videos or something like that. But take a look at this. So now we're in our sandy.net Google domain. And down here, it shows that I've used 9.8 gigabytes, but what's missing is, hey, you can buy more. Why? Because San Diego Unified has done a solid to us all and given us unlimited storage, which is fantastic. So we're grateful for them to do that. So a couple things first. I mentioned to you that Google Drive and all of the Google apps, and we can see a few of them right here just by clicking on that new thing, Doc Sheets, Slides, Form, and there's many more. All of these apps reside where? Up in the cloud, the internet. And how do we access it? Well, if we have an internet connection, we can open up a browser. In this case, looking down here, it's got a little picture of my wife and I because that's my Chrome account, but you can see the Google Chrome little icon there. And when we open up that browser, then it allows us to interact back and forth with the World Wide Web, the internet, the cloud. And what is it really? Google has giant server farms, in some cases the size of sports arenas, filled with computers, very fast ones, latest state of the art, from floor to ceiling. And there, all of your data is being stored. And as you interact with things, as you click on stuff, like going to storage, for example, that click at nearly the speed of light is sent to the Google server farm, and then it responds back and sends back and gives you this visual right here. Again, none of this information is on your computer, your hard drive. It's all residing up in the server farms. And so I'll just go back to here. This is a great button. It resets back to your main desktop, if you will, for Google Drive, and where you have all of your folders and things, which we'll discuss in more detail in just a second. So those Google server farms are all over the world. They're redundant, they're backed up. You'll have your information might be in 3 different parts of the world in those big server farms. And if a meteorite were to come down and like the one that took out the dinosaurs and it took out at one of those server farms, no worries, your stuff will still be available because it's another one, it's redundant. All right, so here we are. We're in our sandy.net Google domain, and we'll just talk about all the different features that we have. So the first thing I want to share with you is we have this thing, some people call it the waffle. It's essentially just the icon where you can go see all of the different Google apps. And we'll talk about that for a second. I'm going to click on it. And so here's my account information. If I want to go in there and look around there, there's the icon that takes me to my drive, which I'm already there. If I want to go to docs or sheets or slides or forms, we can see all of these things that are here. What you're not going to see here is, I don't see it anywhere. We're not going to see Gmail in there. And why is that? I will show you that going to my personal Google account. Oh, that's the wrong one, sorry. There's my drive, not to confuse you. If I click over there, I can see some of the same similar things. It's in a different order, but I can see Gmail. So what of that? First of all, just so you know, just like your apps on your phone, if you left click and grab something, you can move it around and you can put whatever order things you want, up towards the top. And so that's my personal one. Let's go back to the sandy.net Google domain. And even though Gmail's not there, We still have all these other ones, and if I decide I want slides down there, I can move that, but this is the order that I prefer. And so I recommend to you to find all of the different apps within the Google app world that you'd like to access most often and put them, drag them around to the top. So for example, I don't use Google Classroom, and so I'll put that down there, and then maybe what I'll do is I'll simply put Calendar up at the top, since that's where I keep all my classes. And so then I have my other ones right there that I can use. So that's kind of fun. So we're able to do that. So why isn't Gmail there? Well, I will tell you that the Sandy.net Google Domain Administrator, yes, that's actually a job, and someone has that role in the district. They get to decide, perhaps with the influence of other leaders in the district, what it is we're allowed to use of Google. So they have decided that they want us as a district, for example, to work in the Microsoft world and keep all of our emails and everything in Microsoft. Why is that? Very simply, we have millions of dollars invested in all kinds of databases and servers, all of which are Microsoft, and we end up getting access to Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint and of course Outlook and all of that because of it. And I don't know if there's a security issue with using Google Gmail, but for some reason they've made that decision not to. Why am I saying this? I'm mentioning it because that Google administrator has some control over what we get to see, what we can do, how things are shared, what parameters are available, and we'll see some of that as we go. And so that administrator can add things or take things away, change stuff without letting us know. So one feature that we might see one day is there, and then it may not be the next. Or in the case of the Gmail, one day maybe the administrator will decide, you know what, let's let them use Gmail. And then suddenly up here in our waffle, we'll see Gmail appear and we'll have access to it and be able to use it. That's an important distinction to understand, that things can change, the way that it works, the way that things are shared, what your abilities are within Drive are controlled through our network administrator, our Google Sandy.net Google Domain Administrator. Now also up in the cloud, these server farms, there's people at Google that are working all the time to make improvements and upgrade things. And I'll tell you, this button here looked different not too long ago. It was red. And when you clicked on it, it had some different things in it than what you see now. And so that has been evolving. Every aspect of what we're seeing here, the Google Drive user interface, different aspects of it, different sharing abilities are often being modified, changed. We'd like to think that everything that they're doing is making it better. And I would say 99.9% of the time, that's what it is. And so we welcome those changes. The challenge becomes when we're brand new to Google and suddenly things are looking different and they're not working like the way we saw them working before. And so that can be a little bit frustrating. So just know that Google at any time can make upgrades and make changes, and they do, and they will. And so can our administrator for the district make decisions as to what we're going to see and what we're able to use. So that's probably one of the key important things to understand, is that what you see now can look different later, and hopefully all the changes that are made will be for the better. And we'll talk about the search issue a little bit later as we're going to use that. But I will tell you, this is a fabulous feature that did not exist some months ago. I don't know exactly when it came into play, but that's that. I will tell you, just to give you an example of that, in our trash, if I click on this, there's a little banner up here that says items in trash are deleted forever after 30 days. That's a little banner that Google put in there. And this feature, or this new rule, if you will, took place, I believe, on October 15th of this year. And so in the month leading up to that or so, all the time when you're using your Drive and you're bouncing around in your Drive, there'd be a banner that would pop up and say, hey, just so you know, if you want anything that's in your trash that's stored there, you need to get it out, because as of October 15th, when we implement this new policy, this new rule, you can only have something in there for 30 days. So if we look at this, I have some things from earlier this month, from last month, but nothing more than 30 days. And after 30 days, whatever's in here will disappear. And when they say it's going to disappear forever, they do mean forever. You cannot reclaim it. So just an idea. Why do they do that? Because people like me who have a tendency to have tens of thousands of files, just to keep my Google desktop, if you will, a little bit free of clutter from the gazillions of files I would have, I would take most of the extra things that I'd have and I just store it where? In my trash. And because there was no limit prior to October 15th, I could simply go up here and I could search for whatever I wanted to, and it would say, oh, that's in the trash. And then I could click on it, just like down here in the trash. If I wanted to, I could take this thing and right click on it and I could restore it and it would come back to my drive. Or of course I can delete it forever. So that's your trash. And is there an advantage to leaving things in there for 30 days? Yeah, maybe there's something you want to resurrect and bring it out of. So that's an option that you have. But again, new policy, 30 days. All right, let's go back to Drive. So first things first, when you are in your Drive, whenever you're going into different folders and you're clicking on different things and you get in there, you will have whatever you click on, whatever folder you go into, you will see a little breadcrumb trail show up along here. And that's an important thing to recognize, because with that, we can click back to the previous folder and kind of navigate back and forth on this little navigation line. We call it the breadcrumb trail, if you will, of where you're going. But anytime you're in something, and maybe you go a little bit deeper into another folder and then you go into that folder. As I'm going deeper into those folders, you'll see that in my Drive is a folder that I clicked on called Google Classes. In that Google Classes folder, there was another folder called 2019 to 2020 Google Classes. In that folder, there was another folder called February 27th Google Docs class or whatever. And then inside there is a whole nother one that goes there. And so at any time, if I want to back up and navigate around, I can use the breadcrumb trail to go back and forth on these different things. And if you're ever deep inside somewhere and it's getting a little confusing, or you want to get back to the very beginning, all you have to do is hit your Drive button, which is the same thing as hitting this button here, and it takes you back. It takes you back to your basic Drive user interface, or what we can call our Drive desktop. So that's important to know. So let's just look at some of the way that this is laid out. We talked about having some features over here, some different things we can click on. We've already looked at storage a little bit and trash and talked about that. But what will happen is you'll have some of the most recent things that you've used in something called the quick access little area. And these are little tiles, which is kind of nice because this is something I was working on today. If you're a part of our Google Forms class, you'll recognize that. And because I was working on it, it's right up here in the quick access in case I want to get back to it. And then of course, here is the is actually this thing right here that we were looking at just a little bit ago and discussing. So that's why that's there. And then this is that video that I shared with you that from last night that I was working on late into the night, and some other things. And so quick access is exactly what it sounds like, but there's only a few tiles that can fit right there. So if you've worked on 20 things just today, you're only going to see the first few. And again, if I hold down my control button on the bottom left side of my keyboard and I roll my mouse wheel one way, I can zoom in and I can see more, but it gets harder to read. And of course, all of you looking at the Zoom video realize that's like ridiculous. So depending on how zoomed in you are, that's how many you will have available to you. And we'll talk about a better way to find some things that are recent in just a second. But again, quick access would be at the top. And then after that, you have a list of some folders. So here's the deal. Are you going to have the same folders on your end that I have on my end? Absolutely not. If you're brand new to this, it's the first time you're opening up Drive, you won't have any folders here. But we're going to show you in just a moment how to make those folders, and it's quite easy. And there's a number of things we can do, like change the color and whatnot to make it easier to find things. And then of course below that, we have all of the different files. And these might be in an order of, when I last modified them or whatever. There's different ways that you can set that up. But just know they're down there, and we'll kind of jump into that in just a second. So first things first, what we want to do is we want to create a new folder. And again, I have, 9 plus 4 more, I got 13 folders here. I'm going to create my 14th folder inside my Google Drive. This might be your first folder. And as is the case with many of programs, there's always more than one way to do something. So let's just talk about those real quick. If I want to create a new folder, it sounds promising, and go up here to the new, and let's click on it and see what the options are. Oh, there it is. I can add a folder by simply clicking that. If I want to upload some files or a folder to go into that, and think about what upload means, we can upload it. That means we're taking it off of our desktop computer, and then we're sending it up into the cloud. That's why it's called uploading. Oftentimes when we're working on our phones, we're usually looking at downloading something that's going to be put into the permanent memory of whatever it is we have, our laptop, our desktop computer's hard drive, or in the case of a phone, it'd be your phone. But whenever we're adding stuff to our drive, because it resides in the cloud, we're going to upload it. So that's one of the ways to get to a folder, and that's one of the ways to add things to that folder, to put it in there. And then the other way to do it is simply right click over here in anywhere in an area around your folders, and the exact same thing is available to you. So whichever way you want to do it, go for it. Let's just go ahead and left click on new folder. And so this little window pops up and says, okay, what do you want to call it? And so I'm going to call it today's, I already made one earlier for the forms class, today's Drive Basics folder. That's all I'm going to do. And so I'm creating that just so I have a place where I can easily find what it is we're doing today. So you notice it didn't show up right here. Zoom recordings ended up there, and there's a reason for that. But we see it over here, and it's highlighted. And anytime you left click a single time on something, it highlights it. And there's some things that you could do with that, and we'll show in just a moment what that is. But there it is, today's Drive Basics folder. And where is it? It's in My Drive. So we're going to double click on it. The first thing we notice is we're in My Drive in today's Drive Basics folder, and there's nothing there. So as it indicates here, if we have this window a little bit smaller and we have lots of files on our desktop somewhere, and like let's say this PDF up here, whatever that is, if that's something that I want to be in this folder, I can simply left click, drag it, drop it there, and it will be uploaded through this browser up into the World Wide Web, into the server farm, and it'll be part of our drive. This Excel file, same thing. I could drag it in here. If you can't see it, then you can go search for stuff. So I sent to you an email yesterday that had all of these different files that were available, and hopefully you were able to download those and put them on a folder somewhere on your desktop, on your computer that you're using. Maybe it's a laptop. And then if we want to get some of these into our drive, then once they're out of your email, then we can just right click over here and we can upload some files and go search for it. Or again, we can click over here. We'll try it this way. So file upload. So this opens up our little browser, whatever, to be able to look for folders, and we can see the breadcrumb trail up here, kind of illustrated, just like we have one up here. So Google's kind of following that same idea. So in my PC, I've got documents, downloads, music, pictures, all of that. And I have desktop. That's just where I have a lot of things that are stored. So in this case, I'll just double click on desktop. And now you see that on my PC and my desktop, I have a number of things that are here. And so this is going to look different than your computer, but if you have your files that you have downloaded from the email that I sent you, hopefully you can find those. I know that I have mine in this one that says AAA Zoom class files. And then in there I have for all of the different classes. And of course, this one is Google Drive Basics. So I'll simply double click on that. And then I'll see pretty much all the files that you have that were sent to you. And again, these are on my hard drive. Actually, they're on my desktop, which is connected to my hard drive. And so let's take a look at some of these and decide which ones we want to put in here. We can just do one of them and then click open, and it will be brought into our today's Drive Basics folder. Or we can actually, we can click and drag down across several if we want to. We could even hold down the control key and then tap another section, one that's not next to it. And so now all of these files will end up in our today's Drive Basics folder. And I'm going to add one more. So I'm going to hold my control key here. And I am not going to add the Microsoft Office files, Excel and Word and PowerPoint just yet, because we're going to use that those files for a different example. But for right now, I just want to get in these various PDFs that are there. Once I've selected them all, I simply click OK. And you can see over here, it says starting the upload. And just that quickly, it says 6 uploads complete. And there they all are. And if I wanted to open them up here, I could. But because we were in our today's Drive Basics folder, they've all shown up here. And that's important because if you're anywhere in your drive, and we'll just go back and reset it. Let's say you are, where's my Google Classes? You're in, several different folders and you've gone deep on these different ones. And if you're right here and then you decide to upload files, guess where those files are going? They're going to end up in here. So we always have to pay attention to where we are when we're uploading things. If we accidentally put it here and we actually want it in a different folder, absolutely it can be moved, and we'll demonstrate that in just a second. But for our purposes, we're going to go back to our drive and to our new today's Drive Basics folder. And so before I open that, let's see if we can make that a different color so that it stands out. So if we right click on it, we have some options. Let's take a look. We can share this folder with someone. And if you look over here, Camtasia, that's actually shared with someone because we see the little share icon. All right. We can get a link to that folder and I could send it to you all. And if I wanted you to, you could have access to that folder, and you, all of you, could be sharing that folder and the contents of it with me. That's one of the beautiful things about Google and Drive, is that you can share just about anything. And that's why the Google apps are so powerful. All right, if we find something we're looking at, and this is true for all of the files, the many that are down here, and we're not sure where it's being stored, we can always click on that to see the location. This is interesting, adding a shortcut to Drive. This is a little bit different than what it was before, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as we look at individual files. Move to, we can move this anywhere we want. So if we decide that we don't want it right here, this folder, and we want to put it somewhere else, like deep inside the Google Classes ones that we were looking at before, we could do it there. Add to start. Well, we haven't really talked about that yet, but over here on these different options, just like up here, we're looking at my Google Chrome browser, and I have some favorites, if you will, that are on the bookmark toolbar, where I have all my different classes available, so I can quickly link or click on it to get there. You can also do like a favorites kind of a thing in the starred section, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. We can rename this, but right now what we're trying to do is just change the color so it stands out. So I've got a number of different classes around this with different colors. Why don't we just go ahead and maybe make it purple, see if that doesn't stand out. We have another one up here that's purple, but that's okay. So that's how quickly you can change it to make it look different. So again, I'm going to open that up, and there's all the files that we just put in there. So it's probably a good idea to mention this right now, because there's so many options within the Google Drive. It can actually be overwhelming when you're brand new at this. And I apologize, I didn't mention this earlier, but right now we have this in a tile format. What's a tile? Simply a little box with a little picture of what's in there. And then of course at the bottom, it has a little icon to tell us what kind of a file it is. In this case, these are all the PDFs. So they're all PDFs that we got from our email. But we see them in tile format, and I kind of like it that way, so we can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. It's easier to see things. But look up here. If we hover over this, it says list view. Well, let's click on that and see how it looks different. Those are the exact same files, but in list view. And not only are all of those in list view, go back to Drive. Now other than the quick access tiles at the top, all of our folders, remember that was the next section down? All of our folders still retaining the same color, but all the folders are right there. And then remember all those files that we saw below? We saw some images of me that I used to import to my Google account, my Sandy.net Google account. And all those files are kind of listed out that way. So if this is what you were seeing when you opened up your drive and Mr. J is showing you a different way, that's because you can toggle back and forth from grid view to a list. And so again, you still have the icons, and with a little bit of experience, you'll remember that this green icon that looks like that is a Google Sheet. And this right here is a Google Form. And then this is a Google Slide. This is a Google Doc. This is just a picture file. Of course, PDFs look like that. And then when we switch it back into grid format, then we're able to see the actual tiles. And again, we still see the docs icon, the sheets icon, the slides icon, the forms icon, and so on and so forth. In this case, it's a picture icon, and there's a PDF for us right there. And so those are the two different ways you can look at that. So just know that you can change that back and forth simply by clicking on that. All right, so one thing I will mention, wherever you are over here, whatever you click on is going to look the same kind of a format, either grid or list, whatever you did, except for our storage. I'm not sure why they do this, but it doesn't matter if we were in our tile or grid look. All the things that are in your storage are listed this way in a list. And by default, it comes with the largest files at the top. And so I shared with you that some of those videos that I'm doing, the reason why they take so long to make is because they're ginormous. They're 1 gigabyte compared to like a Google Doc that might just be a number of kilobytes, which is a billion versus a few thousand bytes. So that's a very large file, these MP4 files. So here's my storage, here's the contents of it. And again, I have this listed in order of largest to smallest. And so we look down here and we kind of see what the storage is and what's going on. Is this super important for us to understand and know? Not really. It's all for free. If I were in my personal one, and I could go there right now and then go down to my storage there, and we'll see it stored the same way. And you'll see my largest file is this Camtasia program that I bought to be able to work on this computer. And now this becomes important. So we see this Word document here is only 11 megabytes. That's 11 million bytes versus 500 million bytes right up here. And then you saw those videos that are actually 1 billion bytes. And so it's kind of more important at this point, all of these different files. And of course, it's listing all of these in here, all of the ones that are non-Google. Why? Because anything that's a Google Doc, Google Sheet, Google anything, you get to store it for free and does not take up your storage. So this is going to be a list of everything that's not Google and all of the room that's taking up. So maybe you can make some decisions about what you need to keep or get rid of so you're not paying for more storage. But again, going back to our Sandy.net Google Drive, it's unlimited. But nonetheless, there's all the information, all the different videos that I have, different sizes. Then we get into all the Word docs that are here and how big those are. And as we go down, presumably we'll find some Excel files and maybe some PDFs, depending on the size. Come on, don't make me a liar. They're down here somewhere. Okay, there's some PDFs, and at some point there's some PowerPoints. And you can see how small these files are compared to the video files. It's really quite remarkable. I haven't seen a single Excel. There's a Sheets one. And there's an Excel one. I'm sorry, that's an Excel one. It has the X on it. That's why it's in here. So there we go. Those are all of them. So here's our little bar, and we can grab that and go back up to the top pretty quickly. But let's talk about the way things are listed out. We're just in storage. And again, we cannot click on something to make this grid view to see the tiles. It's only going to be in a list form. But we do have control over how we organize this. So if we click over here, it depends on what options are available. It'll look a little bit different. But when the arrow's going down, it's the biggest files down to the smallest. But we can click on it, change the direction. And so now it's the opposite. the ones that don't take up any room at all. In fact, if we look at this and with a little bit of practice, we know that these are all Google products. In fact, hovering over it, we can see it's a Google Sheet, it's a Google Doc, Google Slide, Google Forms, and so on and so forth, and 0 bytes used. Not because these files are 0 bytes, but that's how much of the storage is taking up. Again, unlimited, both personal and district, on anything Google, until you get into the Microsoft stuff, and then it starts taking up some of your storage. But again, unlimited in our Sandy.net Google domain, which is pretty awesome. So I don't know why you would ever want to have this backwards like that. So if it's not looking right, just know that you have a way to change direction. And so the largest file's at the top. That's pretty cool. And then we go back to trash, where we were before, and it's listed out earlier this month, last month. Again, only 30 days can remain in there. But if we want to see this in list form, then we can switch it like that. We still have the earlier this month and the last month section. And earlier this year, that's interesting. I'm not sure why all that's in there. If they've changed the policy where things only last after 30 days, that seems a little strange. Not sure what's going on there. But that won't be the first or the last time you'll ever be confused by something in Google, because oftentimes strange things happen. And right here, it looks like things that I have thrown in the trash a long time ago are still in my trash. And if it's true that items are deleted forever after 30 days, why on earth are we seeing that there? I have no idea. But just a couple things. These are in the trash, but you can still see that this was shared with someone. And it might be because those are shared. Well, these ones, no, they all are. All of those are shared. So it might be that someone else has these current somewhere else. In fact, that's exactly the reason why. There's usually a reason, because these are shared with someone else and those are not in the trash with the shared person, they actually get to remain here in my trash because in fact, they are shared with someone else. How do we know that? These folders are shared because we can see the little person, the shared person that's on the folders, and then these files, Sheets file, Docs files, we can see are shared because we see the shared icon that's there. So we just solved that mystery, and it's something you're always trying to figure out what Google's doing and why it does what it does, and there's usually a reason for it, but there's a great example of it. And again, we could have it like that, or we could put it back in our tile format. In fact, I like the tile format because it allows you again to be able to see what's there, although it does take up a lot more room. All right, so there's trash. So let's look at start. We talked about that. That's just kind of like a favorites place, just like on my bookmark toolbar for my Google Chrome browser. If I want to get to any of these apps, or not apps, but web pages in this case, I can get to any of those very quickly by clicking on that. So we also have the ability to have things that are important and we can add them to here. In fact, we don't see the folder that we did today. So let's go ahead and add that. So if I go back up to my main drive and we go to the folder for today, and if I right click on it, then there's a choice. Looks like it's right about in the middle, add to start. So we just did that. And so then when we go to the starred section, we should see, and there it is, today's Drive Basics folder. And so just by hovering over or clicking on it one time, they'll give you a little screen tip to tell you what the whole name is. And we'll show you in a little bit where we can do or get more information. In fact, we'll do that right now. I'm starting to lose my voice. I apologize. It's been a long day already. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so let me have a chance to get a drink. Thank you for your patience. All right, so when you select something, you have an ability to get more information about that. And it doesn't matter where you are in your drive, that information can be made available to you. So I'm going to go back to where we were in the main drive, and I'm going to simply select today's Drive Basic folder, which we did start, and it's in our start section, but right now we're back here just on the main drive user interface. And so we talked about this, which is the list view, and we can toggle back and forth and make it look like tiles or make it look like just a list as we saw, but there's a little button next to it. If we hover over it, it says view details. Well, view details of what? In this case, I've selected today's Drive Basics folder. And so when I click view details, suddenly I have some information available to me. And this is actually really slick. And the reason Google's able to do what you're about to see is, again, because this is not residing on your hard drive, it's up in the cloud. And every keystroke, every move of the mouse near the speed of light is interacting back and forth with the Google server farms, those great big fast computers. And so all the information of everything that we've done is going to be available to us. So there's two parts, details and activity. Let's look at details first. So first we can see the name of it up here. Then we can see that it's got a purple color, just like we see right there. And you'll notice because I've opened this, and I'll just close this back up again, it's changed the way these things are fitting on the page, just making some room for it. But let's take a look. So it's not shared. If it was, it would show with whom it was shared right there. But type, Google Drive folder, sure enough, location in my drive, because that's where we made it. We placed it, where is it? Right there now. Owner is me. Modified at 154, opened at 202, created at 154, and there's some information down here that I can't see because it's behind one of my Google windows. I'm sorry, one of my Zoom windows, and I believe that's where you can add a description and maybe a little more details if you need to put something there to help you remember what the heck that folder is for or why you have it. Not a bad idea. But if we go up here to where it says activity, we have a whole different list of what's going on, and it's in the order of what happened last. So let's go down a little bit. At the bottom here, I can just barely see part of it. Sorry, I got my Zoom windows in the way. No recorded activity before December 16th. That's right, because today is December 16th, and we just created this. I created it, and I named it today's Drive Basics folder, and it was put in my drive, and that's what time I did that. That's pretty cool information. And then just 4 minutes later, I uploaded 6 PDFs, and there they are. And by the way, if I want to access any of those, I could simply click on it right there, and it will take me right to it. So if you've lost something that you haven't seen in a while and you're not sure which folder it is, one of the ways you could search for it is by going to something and going into the activity. And so that gives us some information just by simply clicking on that. So I'm going to go ahead and click away from that. And now, because I don't have one folder selected, it's giving you information about your drive. So let's start over with details. No details because we haven't selected a folder yet, but activity-wise, it still has the information of what I've been doing. In fact, prior to this class starting, I was doing a number of things. In fact, if we go back to my previous class, there's all kinds of stuff that I was doing with my drive, answering questions, sharing some things with different people. And that's pretty slick. So think about what we're talking about. This is our desktop, if you will, our user interface for Google Drive, which is kind of like your regular computer's desktop where you can have different things. But unlike your regular computer hard drive, desktop, this Google Drive one, because every click is recorded, all the details of all the things that you do with your drive are right there, including the folders that you were working on at 8:40 p.m. last night. So let's see if somewhere here, and there it is. Last night at 11:57 p.m., I finally got the video for yesterday's class, the Intro to Microsoft Excel, finally was completely uploaded. And again, it took like 45 minutes, I think, or something like that to get in there. And there it is. And if I want to access it, I can access it from here. I can also access it from my quick access little area up here. I can access it from there. And there's a couple other places where I could access it from, like where it's actually stored, if I wanted to go into those. But since we're looking at this, we'll just keep going back and see how far it goes. It actually goes back quite a ways. And I haven't played with this recently, but it used to go back, I think, like 3 months or something, and that was it. But I noticed the other day when I was playing with this, you see this little bar here keeps getting smaller, and we get down to there, and it gives us some more. So let's go down December 3rd. I did all those things. And I don't know, we won't take the time to go too far, but I was finding stuff from like a year ago that was in there. And so something I was working on way back then, you could see that this is X'd out. So presumably that was thrown into the trash and it's no longer available. In fact, I can't click on it, but something else that's there, the 12.3 Google Drive Basics. I can see my little hand is showing up, so I could open that. I'm not going to because I don't want it to show up here right now. But there you go. That's your Drive activity. And again, any folder that you have, you can get the details of it, find out if it's shared, who owns it, when it was opened, created, modified. You can add a description to it right down here, or go back to the activity. And we know that on November 18th, I restored an item. The 13th, I did that, and so on and so forth. And you keep on going down, and we can just see how far it's going to take us. So yeah, we're already back months and months and months. We can see it right here. And again, that's this folder here. I don't go in that all the time. So it was a little easier, unlike my Drive, which I'm using every day, to go back quite a ways. And so I don't know what the limit is, but there it is. But if those files still exist, you can access them from here. That's a pretty remarkable thing. So we know that's there, and we were talking about today's Drive basic folder here and looking at the different things that we did today. If we go to another section, then we still have this window open, and all we have to do is click on it again, and then that information will become available. Or in the case of this one over here, the email addresses, I can see the different things that I've done in that folder, or click on this file, the same thing. You can see what was done on that file, in this case, a Sheets file. You can find out who owns it. In this case, I own that, and I've shared it with all of these people here, plus 12 more. And if I click on it, it will list it out. Those are the individuals that I've trained that with, or shared that with. Oh, look at that. You can see my various trainer accounts that we had created for me. So we could practice some different features. That's pretty cool. And so different information on that. That's a very powerful tool. Again, the details section, and then activity. What was done when, and what was modified. Pretty powerful information available to you just because of the way that Drive is set up. So that's pretty slick. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that just to give us a little more space. So we're kind of working our way backwards here. We talked about storage, talked about trash, starred. So what's recent? Well, before I show you that, we'll go back to here. And remember, we said that the last few that you've been working on will show up here. But what happens if you've worked on 15 of them just today? You only see a few. So if we hit recent, that's a pretty cool folder. And so it's going to show us all the ones from today. And since I've been a busy boy, we can see that there's quite a few from today. And there's quite a few from yesterday, earlier this week, last week, and then earlier this month, and on and on and on. And that's another way that you can find this, but something to keep in mind. This one is not going to allow you to change the order because it's the recent one, and it's the whole purpose of it is to show it in order of what you used most recently. But if you have like another folder, and we'll just go back to Drive just to demonstrate this, you have the ability to change the order of how things are. So for example, right here, let's just click on this and see what we have. So we have the choice, and I have selected name. That's why there's a check mark there. And that's how this is organized. And you see the arrow going up. If I want to reverse the direction, I can click on that. But let's talk about the way that it's set up. Because numbers come before letters when you're putting things in alphabetical order or whatever, that's just how they decided. All of my folders that have a number first come, and then followed by the alphabet. C, E, G, M, O, S, all the way down to Zoom, which is our last one. And then all of our files down here are kind of the same way. So we see all of these things have numbers. This one actually has a dot, so that's why it's there at the front. And then as we go down, after we get through all of the different numbers, then at some point, well, there's our first one with the letter, and it happens to be AAA, followed by more A's, some B's, some C's, and so on and so forth. And that's how it's set up like that. Important to understand that that's the way it is. but it's also important to understand you can swap the direction. And so not only is my Zoom recordings folder way over here on the left now, and then the ones with the numbers are on the opposite side, that kind of changes the way that order is, which makes sense. It's either A to Z or Z to A kind of a thing. But down here, it's the same deal. So all of my files, and I have hundreds, if not thousands, pardon me while I get a drink. They're all named, and depending on whether they have which letter of the alphabet they start with, they'll show up that way. So sometimes these buttons get clicked by accident as we're dancing around, and all of a sudden everything's different. We're not sure what we're looking at. But wait, there's more options, which can make it very confusing. So why do I keep it in the name and I keep it alphabetized? So if I have my Zoom recordings, I know where it's going to be every time. It's going to be at the end of this list. And no matter what I open up, and as these things jump around, it'll still be at the end of the list. It's not over here anymore, but it's still at the end of the list, which is going left to right down the page like that. So that's kind of cool. So let's hide that. But we saw when we clicked on that, there's some other options. All right. Last modified by anyone. Last modified by me. Last opened by me. These are all options for you. And watch what happens to my folders here as I make some changes here. Last modified. Well, I was in Google Classes, Camtasia. I'm not sure why that's there. Actually, this is in reverse order because we were in today's drive. So we could switch that. And so these are the ones that I was working on today, presumably, and the ones that I was modifying. So remember that, it's a distinction, modified, not just open. But how about last opened by me? All right. So today's drive was opened, then Google Classes, I went into there, and these are some of the other ones that I went into in that order. So, and again, you can switch it around so that it's not only last opened by me, but now you can put it in reverse order. So you can see very quickly how just by accident, if you click on these things as you're moving around, suddenly everything's scrambled and you're like, what the heck? I always thought my Zoom classes were always over here at the right, and now they're not. Just know that you have all of these options. And whereas some of these might work for you, for me, I just want to know that my Zoom recordings are always at the end, which means alphabetically I can find the other folders pretty quickly because they stay in that order. So again, when you change this stuff, it's also changing what you have in your basic Drive desktop, if you will. And just to hopefully not confuse you, but just illustrate a point, we're in our browser, we're in the World Wide Web, we're in the cloud, we're dealing with all things Google. If I minimize this, and I apologize, my wife set this up. This is a 4th-generation picture of our family, but this is a desktop of our home computer here in our home office. And all of these files that you see here, some she made, some I did, some from work, and so on and so forth, all of these reside on the hard drive of this computer. And down here at the bottom is the taskbar with all the different programs that are on this computer. And they're all there. So this is everything that is on at least the desktop version of it. And of course, if I want to go search through other parts of the hard drive of this computer, I can find all of those things in there, which is different, but similar to our Google user interface. We have all of those things kind of like on the personal desktop. And again, not to confuse anyone, but you can always put it in list form. And some people that I know, they always put it in list form because for them, it's easier to get more information on a page and they're not getting and seeing all those pictures and making things confusing to them. And so they like to do it that way. Personal preference, you can do it whatever way you want. But for our class, we're going to keep it in the tile form because I don't know, maybe I'm just a visual person and I find that a little easier to do it that way. All right, so there we are. We're talking about all these different things, and let's go find a few more things. So if you are brand new to Google Drive, and maybe you're a new employee with the district and you've just gotten your sandy.net email address, which then allows you to go to your sandy.net Google Drive. Again, you may not have any folders at all, but we've already seen how we can make those. We've already seen how we can upload files to it and all of that. We'll be uploading a few more in just a moment. But you may not have anything on here, and yet you might find all kinds of things that have been shared with you. Now, this has changed over the last little while, but this is a good place to kind of start to share some things. So last month, all of these things were shared with me from other people. Actually, I believe this is, no, I thought that was much older, but apparently that was last month. But all of these things were shared with me earlier this year, and then older than that, other things that have been shared with me. These are things that someone else made that they simply shared and I have access to. So again, if you're brand new to the Sandy.net Google domain and you open this up, you might see tons or thousands of files that have already been shared with you. Maybe they're district-wide sharings. Maybe your department has a lot of things that they share to everybody in the department. And so once they add your name to that department, everything that's been shared suddenly is now shared with you. And so you'll end up with all of these things. Well, what of that? So back in the day, it used to be that when something was shared with you, you could right-click on it, and you had this option that said add to drive. In other words, this is like a mailbox, if you will, and all this stuff was sent to you and it's stored in that mailbox. But if you want to take it out of the mailbox and put it into your little drive office, if you will, your main drive, then you would right click on it and say add to drive. Well, I noticed that they stopped doing that not too long ago. And so they kind of did it a little bit different way, and it says add shortcut to drive. And so if we share, or someone shares a folder with us, then we have the option to take it out of the shared with me and not actually put it into the drive, but just add a shortcut to it. That's a little confusing, but think about, I'm just going to move this real quick. So here's a PDF up here. That's basically just a shortcut. That's not the actual PDF. That's just a shortcut that's going to take us. In fact, if I went to properties on that, we can see somewhere in here, it's going to say that it's just a little shortcut. And that's all it is to take us to that thing. So that's kind of what they're doing. They're kind of doing it more like Microsoft. So let me find a way to move this back up to where it was so I can see past my windows. So that's not a bad way to do it. So just know that the way they're doing it now is when someone shares something with you, it's always going to reside apparently in your shared with me folder. And this was something that was confusing before. Once you right clicked on it and you said add to drive, it was no longer in your shared with me section, it was only on your drive. So then the problem became with someone says, hey, did you get that thing that I shared with you? Yeah, I did. I added it to my drive. Well, where is it? I have no idea. And then they can't go back to this area here and find it. So that's probably why they did the shortcut thing, so that the actual folder or file, if you will, resides in the shared with me. So that's the shared with me folder. There it is. Depending on what department you're in or what school you're working at, you may have a shared drive. So kind of like my own personal drive up here, these aren't folders or files really. We're calling it a drive, which I guess is like a folder. But we have shared drives. So let's go ahead and click on that real quick. And I am an IT trainer. So I have a shared drive with other IT trainers. And we have some different folders here. So four of us have access to this one here, and 5 of us have access to our training calendars. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, double click it, and open it up. So here's my quick access little kind of area up here with my tiles on it or whatever. And then here's my folders. A couple things to notice. Just like before, when we are in our main drive, we have the ability to sort this in multiple ways and in multiple, at least 2 directions. We still have a quick access tiles up here at the top. And we have all of our folders that are available to us here. And we're in the grid format because it's given us the option to put it in list, and there's not much in here, so that doesn't really work for now. But pre-COVID, we had very busy labs at the IMC. And so we would, as trainers, we would have all of our different calendars available to us so we could add our classes and not step on any toes or double book the lab, as it were. I'm sharing this with you to simply illustrate a point. So back in March of 2018, We go to there and we can see all of the different classes that were added there. There's a Google Docs class that I was teaching at that time, and this is Power School. So March, I guess they're working on whatever it was for the following year, something they're working on, master schedule or something. And there they all are. And so we could all share this. And where was this? I'm just going to click this and watch what happens when we get out of here. All right. It takes us back to our drive where we were, but we're still in the training calendars. In fact, we're in the 2018 folder. And if I just want to go back to here, I can then maybe choose the 2019 folder and then select something here. And again, breadcrumb trail, and we still have our the name of the files listed out, alphabetical order, like that. We can always change it in a different direction if we want to, but that looks a lot like our drive, just happens to be in the training calendar. In fact, if I just go back up here and I refresh, taking us back to our drive user interface, we should see now something that was just open, quick access. There it is. That's the file that I just opened. And again, if we go to the recent one, that should be the very last one that we did. I'm not sure why it's in different order up there in the quick access, but here, at least we see in the order of things that were opened. So there's that. Go back up to Drive. And again, really not sure why it's there. I would think it would be over here. One of the many mysteries of Google and how things work. Probably not that important, especially since we have a recent one here. So go back to shared drives. There it is. And if I click on it one time, and let's see if I can find my information icon over there. I don't have an information thing. That's interesting. So in the shared drive, that's not even available. So I can manage members. I could see who's in there. So I could click on that. And it gives us a list of some bosses and some of the individuals that are actual trainers in our district. And you might recognize some of those names. But there they are. And somehow we've made us all managers so we can interact and change things and add things and whatever. So there's a shared drive. That's pretty cool. And that's something that our Sandy.net Google Domain Administrator has made available to us, which is a nice thing, and you might have that in your department. All right, so I'm going to skip this drive choice right here, right now. In fact, let's go back where we were. And so I just want to show you something that's new. This was not around before, and it's a new feature. It's, again, Google's always changing stuff and trying to make things better and improving the way that we find things. Just like we talked about the shared with me and how you're not actually taking it out of the shared with me folder and sticking it in your drive. You're just putting a shortcut in your drive and still having the main file actually stored in the shared with me area. So here's priority. Let's take a look at this. We can see there's several things that it's suggesting to us that we might want to have in here. Maybe we want to dismiss it. We could do that. We look over here, we have this little arrow, and the arrow is going to take us a little bit deeper. And so priority, I'm guessing that these are the ones. If I look at this pretty close, yep, these are all the files that I've been working on in the last couple of days, and there they are. And then we look down below here, workplaces. All right, so I can go down here and I can create a workspace where I can maybe have a workspace for everything that's Google Forms, maybe a workspace for everything that's Google Drive. Because being an instructor and I'm teaching all these different courses, I might want a workspace for everything Microsoft, or even everything all Microsoft Excel, or another one that's everything all Microsoft Word, for example. And then there's hidden workspaces down here. Again, this is something new that I haven't even had the chance to explore or deal with. At some point I probably will. But since this is the basics course, I'm just here to tell you that new things are happening all the time. And so you simply have to click on it and try and figure out what the heck it is or why it's there. As we can see, it says, you've opened this frequently. You betcha. That's our calendar. New responses. So someone has filled out the form that we used for fun in our morning Google Forms class. And so that's there. It's showing me that there's new responses. That's pretty cool. Something that I made today, something that I showed just now. And let's see what other things it says. You edited today, edited in the past week. You open today, you created today. So it's not necessarily in chronological order. There's some kind of decision making going on here by Google, probably some algorithm, and it's suggesting things that are here so that you can presumably take them and maybe add them to your new workspace that you've created to deal with organizing this. So there again, Google is always trying to improve the way things work. And let's just see what this ellipsis up here says. No, it's the same thing as right-clicking on one of these files. You right-click it, and again, you can add it to start, rename it, make a copy, download it because it's up in the cloud, share it with someone, get a link, so on and so forth. Preview mode, that's kind of cool. Hit preview, and there it is. Stop spinning. I just want to see how deep this preview goes. There it is. So it had to load it all. There's our calendar for last quarter, all the way up to December, to our class that we're in right now. And there's January staring at me saying, come on, Mr. J, stay up later and get more done and load up all those 64 classes that you've added to the next quarter. All right, so there we go, priority. So I'm going to reset. We're going to go to Drive real quick. And there's one last thing I want to share with you about this, and it's called the Drive file tree. And then we're going to upload a couple more files and talk about sharing things and all of that in just a jiffy. But wanted to share something with you. So again, here's the quick access on top. We've seen that a few times, followed by our folders. And I have it set up by, oh, there, I don't want to do that. I want to change it back to name. So my zoom is always at the end and I can find the ones that I'm doing here. And then all of these files that are in that order, alphabetized order, starting with the punctuation, followed by numbers, followed by A through Z. So they're all right there. Well, what of that? Well, we already saw that if I choose, where is it? Excuse me, my Google Classes folder, and I drill down by double clicking on that, I get to see all of the folders that are in there. And we see that we're in My Drive in the Google Classes folder. And then if I look at another one, you can see that this one is shared, and I double click on that, then we're going a little bit deeper. We can see our breadcrumb trail and a little reminder that it's actually shared. And in fact, if I want to find out who it's shared with, I can click on there and I can see that my Sandy.net me has shared it with, oh, backwards, I'm sorry. My personal one, my Yahoo account through, it's actually a Google account, but using my Yahoo email address that I set up is the owner, and I shared it with my Sandy.net self and gave myself editor privileges and all that. That's pretty cool. Let's click away from that. And so we're just kind of drilling down here, and we maybe go to, see if which one's going to take me a little bit deeper, maybe this one. All right, takes us to there. And so we're going deeper and we're looking around, we're trying to find different things. And as we go really deep, then of course it starts to do an ellipsis because it doesn't all fit right there. Well, what of that? So again, we started off in My Drive and we went into the Google Classes and then went deeper and deeper inside all of these different, let's see if we can get this spread out. There we go. I went back one and now we can see all of that. Well, the one that we haven't talked about right here is My Drive, but that's what we're in. We are in our drive, in fact, My Drive, and we're deep into it. So what is this over here? Well, let's look at this first one here, shared drives. We already showed that, but there's this little expand collapse button here. You've probably seen that in other programs. If I click it, then it opens up, and then it says, okay, here's the folders. I want you to notice something. Whereas every other time in Drive, we've been drilling down and clicking on stuff, trying to find something or go deeper and to look for something or whatever, it changes everything that we see on the screen. But over here, what I'm showing you is you use the Drive file tree. That's what it's called from back in the DOS days. And if you remember the calendars, we had several folders in there. In fact, we had all those different dates. And then in the 2018, there are no more folders. So even though we've expanded that, we don't see it because that was filled with 12 months of calendars representing all the IT training days, right? So what we're doing is we're able to do some exploring here and nothing changes over here until we decide to click on it, and then it will become available to see. So we'll go ahead and do that at this point. So there we are now inside the training calendars folder, which is inside shared drives. And then we're inside the 2018 folder, which has all of the 2018 calendars that are there. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting. So let's explore it a little bit further. So this is where I am right now, and I'm looking at something or whatever, and that's all great. And I want to find something else. I don't have to go back up here and just start drilling down into things. I can go to my Drive file tree, open that up, and this should look familiar to you. In fact, you remember that Camtasia was shared. You can see the icon right there. Let's see, the one from today was not that one. There it is. And by the way, in Windows environments, you get between two sections like this. Get it just right. You can drag things over and make some more room. Within reason, you can make some more room. And so here's our today's Drive Basics folder. All right. And did we put any more folders inside there? We did not. But you remember we kept going into the Google Classes one. And then from there, we went to Master Google Class Files. And from there, I think the last one I clicked on was email addresses. Maybe not. Let's see. Handbooks, I think, is the one we were just in. And there was a few more there. And so my point is, we can see the Drive file tree of how things are stored, what's inside something. So everything you see down here is all inside Google Classes folder. But all of these are inside this folder called Google Online Handbook, which is inside this folder, Master Google Classes, which is inside Google Classes, which is inside my Drive. And how do I know that? It's the hierarchy, because as it goes over to the right, it's like an outline. You have the main one with subordinate ones, inside subordinate ones, and so on and so forth. So in other words, this is just another way for you to be able to access and look for things. And I can do this on all of them. I can find whichever ones have more folders in them and click on it and go exploring and see what's available there and try and find something without changing what's here. So just another way to do that. And then of course, how do you make that go away? You just collapse it all, just like that. So I'm gonna go back to the main Drive, take another drink here because I'm losing my voice. Must be getting close to the end of the week. I apologize, it's only Wednesday. Holy cow. All right, so moving along, there's a few more things that we want to do. So again, we're back here and this is strange. I could swear I already changed that pack. So let's do it again. Name, put my Zoom things back there. Again, strange things often happen in Google and we don't know exactly why, but I'm sure there's a reason. All right, so here's our today's folder for Drive. And here's some of the files that we put in there. Okay, so we know we can right click and we can upload things, but here's some other things that we need to know. So up here is our settings icon, little gear. And if you single click on that, there's a couple different places you can go. So the one that we're interested in is settings. All right. And wait a minute. I just saw something that I didn't see before. That often happens. So I'm going to go back. Remember I told you that was on my personal computer, so I didn't have access to Drive File Stream. I think I just figured out where you can get that. So get Drive for desktop. I'm going to click on that real quick. It's going to tell me how to do it. I don't know that I can actually do it. But that idea is that on my computer up here somewhere, I have a folder or a little icon, a shortcut, if you will, that says Google Drive, Sandy.net, Google Drive. There it is. And so anything I drag and drop into that is how I'm going to be able to get things into Drive the easy way without actually having Drive open. That's what that is. So it was just giving me a description of what it was, and I'm grateful for that. Maybe it'll allow you to do it, I don't know. But we'll have to explore that later. So settings, we go into settings, and there's a couple different categories of settings in the general section. Talks about storage, not that important because we have unlimited. Converting uploads, this is actually the one we're going to deal with. But just take a moment to kind of appreciate what else is in there. Density, how tight things are, maybe make them more compact. This has to do with the appearance of how your user interface looks. And so you have some options here. So here you go. Make relevant files handy when you need them in quick access. Okay, well, we have that. So I'm wondering if I turn that off. I don't ever remember seeing this before. This might be something new. Always doing that. So I turn that off. Let's go back to my drive. Well, isn't that cool? I don't know that you could do that before. Again, always upgrading, always doing something different. Maybe you don't want to see that quick access thing up there because you want to get straight to your files. And after all, we have recent, so we can see everything we did today, and not just 4 or 5 tiles across there, but everything all in chronological order down to yesterday, earlier this week, last month, so on and so forth. So again, being in your main drive, maybe you don't want that quick access. Maybe you do. So we just figured out how to do that by going to settings, and in there underneath density was that option to do that. But because we want to do the default one, since I'm training these classes, we'll put that back. Surface important people and files and shared with me. Page refresh required. Okay, not sure exactly what that's going to do, but we could do that. Make priority my default homepage. Oh, interesting. So my Drive user interface that I have with the priority option over on the left, if that's what you decide you want to do and you don't want to see your quick access and folders and your files like that, you could click that, and then that becomes your new desktop. So when you hit Drive, what you're going to see is the priority one. Again, priority's just been added not too long ago, so this is another feature that has become available. So anyway, you can look around and see these different things and kind of make some choices and decisions. We're actually going to be working with this one right now in just a moment. But before I do, under the general settings, you can go down to notifications in settings, and here's where you do it. You check this box, which I do, so that I get updates about Google Drive items via email. Account related messages will be sent. Okay, so we'll see what that looks like. If I go to here, this is my Outlook, it's not even Google. And I have a special folder down here where I direct all of my Google Mail to. And so here it is. This person was asking for access to a video file that I had shared. And then this is the latest one, inviting me to fill out a form. I had sent a thing to myself to do that. But anyway, all of the ones that come in. So this is someone who was asking for some help on something, and it all came through all the Google, and those notifications exist. Why? Because I had selected email. Now again, I'm in my browser here. If I want to, I could select that, and every time someone fills out a form or shares something with me while I'm in my browser, without even going to my email, I'll see a little notification. So there's where you can make some of those choices. I have too many things going on, so I prefer to have emails, and as you saw, all loaded into one little space, so I can have those kind of out of the way because I get a lot of them. So back to general. Here we go, convert uploads. Let's see what this says. The box is unchecked right now. That's the way I prefer it, but we're going to just show you how this works. Convert uploaded files to Google Docs editor format. So if I have a Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint file, and I want to upload it into my drive, if this is selected, it's not going to keep it in a Microsoft format. Sort of. It's a little confusing because we're going to show why in just a second. It's going to at least get it into a Google app, but it's still going to be part Microsoft. And I apologize, that's confusing. So the best way is just to show you. I'm not even going to bother clicking this because I'm going to show you exactly how it works. All right. And again, this is the way I prefer to do it so that I can store all of my Word files and Microsoft things. And again, unlimited for the district. So why not? I have them there. If for some reason my computer crashes, I could always go get those and download them back down because they're up there in the cloud being stored for free. So I prefer to always leave them in the original format and then change them into a docs format if I want to later. And let's talk about how to do that. So again, I'm going to go back into my today's Drive Basics. We already uploaded those that are there, and we want to bring in some more. So this is what it's going to look like. Upload files. And again, hopefully you have those files that were sent to you. So let's do the famous author Word document. If you've been in our Google Docs class or if you've been in our Word class, you've seen this one. And so down here it says uploading, and it says uploading complete. So again, here it is. It just showed up because I was already in this folder. This is where it showed up. And again, if I wanted to change the location of something, you find it anywhere in your drive, simply right click on it and you can click this and say move to, and then tell it what folder to go to. We're not going to take the time to do that. But here it is. It's a Word document. It's not a Google Doc. All right. Google Doc has it's also blue, but it looks different. This has a W, so I know it's a Word file. In fact, if I click on it one time and I go over here to, by the way, this is really strange. I don't know why this is happening. You notice up here, let's see, I keep changing it back to name, and then it keeps changing itself. And I don't know why it's doing that. Very strange. So here it is in the order of things that I looked at, I suppose. I don't know. Here we go. So I did my information thing, and I can find out that sure enough, it is a Word document. What about it? Who owns it? Where it came from? So on and so forth. Any activity of anything I've done, and presumably there's nothing there other than it's been uploaded. So again, if I had gone to, I'm going to get rid of that. If I had gone up here into settings and I had selected this box, then this would not be here with a W on it. It would actually be a Google Doc, sort of, because there's a middle step, and we're going to talk about that right now. So it used to be that if you double clicked on this, it would open it up into preview. The way that they've changed it just recently is now it goes straight into a half Microsoft document and half Google document. That's a little confusing, but we're gonna show you what we're talking about here. So again, we're in our drive, got all these tabs open, but just pay attention to our tabs. I'm gonna right click on this and go to preview mode just so we can see it. So just so you know, we're still in the drive. We haven't opened anything up. We haven't changed anything, but we just do a little preview of it. So here's what it looks like. This happens to have 4 different authors on it. And in the preview mode, we can't edit anything, highlight it, delete, add stuff, but we can certainly look at it because this is a Word document. And so the option that's available to us, and what happens if we have that button in settings selected to automatically change it into the Google Doc format, is the same thing as if we click right here. And when we do that, it's going to open up another window here. But again, there's another way to do that. I can simply double click on this. The same thing is doing, and you'll see that here's where we started. I double clicked on that, and it's got a whole new one up here. And look, if you recognize the user interface, we're in Google Docs. This is not Microsoft Office, and it's not Microsoft Word, except it sort of is. We hover over this, Microsoft Word format. This is still kind of like a Microsoft Word document, but it's also Google. So I'd like to say it's just half Google, half Microsoft. Just know that this is a middle step, and this is what, if you check that box in settings, it's going to, excuse me, it's going to turn it into this creature that's half Google and half Microsoft. I will just tell you, stay away from this, even though I can come in here and I can, delete things or add stuff or do whatever. We don't want to do that because things that I've learned by going to the different user groups and reading chat rooms and stuff like that is that weird things happen when you're half Google, half, pardon me while I get a drink. I apologize. I just do so much talking that my voice is starting to give away. So let me drink some more water. What I've learned is that weird things happen. If you're in a spreadsheet, Google Sheets, and it's half Excel and half Google Sheets, for example, you could start a whole new worksheet, do a bunch of formulas and set up all these functions and do all these things and come back the next day and all of that stuff is gone. It's missing. It's not there. That would be very frightening, and we certainly don't want that to happen. And the same thing is happening apparently in Google Docs when it's half Google Docs and half Microsoft. There it is. It says Microsoft Word format. So how do we get it out of that and get it 100% into Google Docs? Again, it started off as simply a Word file. And again, that's how I like to do it. Not checking that box. I just always want to have both. But once we're in this half and half world, we can simply go over here to File. And this works in Sheets and in Slides and all of those. And we just go down to Save as Google Doc. And when we do that, a whole nother window has opened up. Again, we started here. Let's just add it to our little folder here because this is where we were. We started here. It then took us to this half and half world. And then by simply going to the file menu and going down to save as Google Doc, it opened it up to, in fact, an actual Google Doc with no Microsoft extension. So this is where you can take a Word document, in this case, a Microsoft file, and turn it into 100% doc. And you can do it again with sheets and slides and all of that. So just know that when you're uploading stuff, you have a choice in your drive to say, please make everything converted to Google Docs editor format. But when it does that, it's not actually taking it to this one where it's 100%. It'll take you to this middle area. So where it's half and half. And so what's the point? We really don't want to have that one because of the problems of things disappearing and all of that. So there we go. So again, whatever files you're uploading, you could do that. So I see time is screaming by real fast, and there's one more thing that I wanted to share with you, and that is using the OCR software that's available, the optical character recognition. And so I have this PDF that's right here that we've uploaded, which happens to be something that I got off of the San Diego Unified main web pages. In fact, I don't want to open it up in here because it's a PDF and it's going to try to put it into docs. Before that, I want to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to go back down here to my hard drive, my computer, and I'm going to find it there, and I'm going to open it up on my computer. This is not in Google Drive, just so we're aware. And let's see if I can roll my mouse wheel with my control button pushed down so I can take a quick look at it. Statement of non-participation, San Diego Unified School District Group Health Benefits. So this is a PDF. And so the idea in the past is you would simply get the PDF and you would print it out, you'd fill out all the information, then you would scan it on your copier or whatever, and then send it back to whatever department this came from. Well, if you pay money to Adobe, who owns PDFs, and you have Acrobat Pro or one of these other ones that cost like $150, $200 a year, you can edit and change and modify and interact and type everything in right there on the page, but you have to pay for that. So what is Google doing? Well, we've already uploaded this to our Google Drive. Let's take a look at it, and I'll just I'll make this a little bit smaller, but I'll have that available so we can compare and contrast what the difference is. So here it is. So again, I want to open it up so I can look at it in a preview form if I want. It's going to show us what we have there. We want to go straight into open it up as a Google Doc. And let's see how well it does. So what I will tell you is when anything is in words written out, it's really good at figuring that out. But what was a single page is now a double page because it's pushed some things down. Why? The OCR software, optical character recognition, a character is like a letter or a number. Again, it picks up on that really well. But as far as formatting for boxes, check boxes, things like that, it's harder for it to do that. And so, yeah, we can come in here and I can click up here and I can start, adding my name if I want to type it out there and do all of that. But let's look and see, compare it to what it looked like before. And let's see if I can make this a little smaller so we can see what it looks like. So there it is. And here's the check boxes. Now we'll notice on this one here, and in fact, I'm going to pull this down, see if I can do this and kind of shrink it up a little bit, get rid of that, make this go up here like this, and see if we can't, pardon me, while I try to make this fit a little bit better. That's a little too far drilled in. Yeah, that should work anyway. And then, okay, where'd my other one go? There it is. All right, so again, I'll move that over just a little bit, maybe a little bit more. And so here it is in so many windows opened up with the Zoom and all of that. So here it is, and it ended up going from a single page like this, and it just put it onto two different pages. Yes, we can interact with it, but you see the boxes have disappeared. It didn't know what to do with that. And so we can't really go here and check the boxes and then, change this back into a PDF and send it back. But it's there. So again, if you have something that's in a PDF and maybe it's from another department and you want to copy that and maybe change some things around, and instead of having to start from scratch and set everything up, you could just use your Google Drive and the optical character recognition and get it into this form. And then with a little bit of effort, you can squeeze things around and get it back to one page and maybe add some boxes there. And maybe this one right here, we can get it back lined up. Oh boy. That's having a hard time. We'll have to maybe, let's see, get that over to the centers. Maybe that's what it was. Nope, that's not it. So maybe get these ones over to the center, maybe make those all the same. Nope, it's the way that it's figured out how it is. It's set up kind of funny. So you'd have to play with it and kind of move it back and forth and see if you can get it to look like that. But at least all of that text. I do not wish to participate in the district-sponsored group health benefits. I do not wish to participate in the district-sponsored group health benefits. Again, optical character recognition, it picks up on all the characters really well, but it doesn't do so well with boxes and formatting and all of that. In fact, the employee signature and date, you see sort of disappeared, all the lines down there. But you could certainly add that. So you just need to know that you have that ability in your Google Drive to be able to do that. So we've covered a number of things today, and just last but not least, if I wanted to take this folder here and I wanted to share it with you all, I could simply click the share button and it'll say, who do you want to put in there? And then I could go find my list of all of your email addresses and put it in there, and I could share it. It's as simple as that. And then there's some options of how you share it. If you want people just to view it or to be able to interact with it and add things or take things away, you can certainly do that. So very powerful, this thing that the district has given us called Google Drive, and it's changing all the time. The trash, no longer can you put 10,000 files in there. You can only hold on to it for 30 days. But as we kind of happened upon today, if it's owned by someone else and they haven't thrown it away, then it's still, because you're being shared, it's still going to have those files in there beyond the 30 days. That's interesting. There's all the different things that we have in our drive. So at this point, I just want to say thank you so much for coming today. I realize we jumped around and covered many different things, and hopefully this is starting to make more sense to you. And again, if you are brand new to computing, to using computers, or feel that you're less experienced, you haven't really dealt with Google Drive, starting in January, we will have a beginning Google Drive class that's available, and also Word and Excel, where we'll take more time and kind of explain in more detail how things work and answer all of your questions, so that you feel like you've got a strong foundation to move forward and continue learning those skills. So thank you so much for coming today. In just a moment, I want to open it up to question and answers. But at this point, I just want to say thank you all for coming and for all that you do for our district. We're so grateful that you're here and learning more. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording so that the file's not too big, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So thank you all for coming today. We appreciate you being here, and have a wonderful week.